Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our public information meeting. Thanks for coming. Before we start, just want to remind everyone, tell that this meeting will be recorded and will be posted to our project website. So I'm sure you are now familiar with the project website. And we also have maps available up front, in the registration area if you want to. Before anything else, I'm just curious, how did everyone know about this public info meeting? Probably show your hands. Did anyone hear about this from our social media accounts? If you're which social media is it? Our Instagram, Facebook? Facebook, Instagram? Yeah, I heard some. Okay, and what about from our news article from Tribuna? Anyone heard from there?
I think it started today.
Okay, anyone else that I did not mention? How did anybody hear about this meeting? Probably social media. It's very powerful. Well, thank you for following your social media accounts then. So with that, welcome. So we have here the project team. I'm from the Department of Transportation. My name is Christian Mapan. I'm the project engineer, and I have here is the project manager or principal, Neil Padel.
Good evening.
Good evening. And we also have here from the consultant from CDM Smith. This is Sharat Kaburi. Then we also have our environmental group, which is headed by Janine Dergo from SLR. And then we also have Rick, who will do a presentation later on, which you probably heard
Yeah,
from
you
that.
heard too much from me already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Rick. And then we have here the lead for communication engagement with Marcy there. And then you met Laura probably in the front. So, in accordance to Title 4 of Civil Rights, the Department of Transportation makes the effort that no person shall, on the basis of color or race, color or national or origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. So we would appreciate anyone who attended this meeting, if after this meeting, if you could do some survey for us at portal.city.gov/city.dot survey, and the result from this will help the department improve our future public informational meeting moving forward. Also, if you want to learn about the Title VI rights, you can visit our Title VI rights at our DOT website. And this is just a Spanish version, just basically saying the same thing, no person shall be discriminated. And so for today's meeting, our agenda is we will go through the study limits, then we will go through the appel study process, which you probably heard a little bit from the video and something from the board. Then we will go through the study segments, which we have 4 segments. We look into mainline, west, center, and east segments. And then we're also looking at the 9 non-highway options, which includes the bus, the rail, and bicycle. And then after that, we'll go through the next step. And then with that, I will hand in the presentation to Rick.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
So we wanted to take a few minutes to kind of recap what was on the 10-minute presentation. So if all of this on the process doesn't make sense, we can go into more detail one-on-one, or you can go back to my exciting presentation. The thing that we want to point out is that in 2018, there was a needs and deficiencies report completed that defined some of the issues on the I-84 corridor. And there's more than usual congestion. In fact, when the original design capacity was for 15,000 vehicles per day. In 2016, there was 110,000. And in 2040, it's expected to be over 130,000 vehicles per day. So we all of us who drive this kind of understand it's congestion. The needs and deficiencies report also pointed out that there's a lot of poor mobility. That's the movement of people and goods, and especially things like there's poor connections between highway and local destinations like the hospital or downtown. So those points were taken into consideration when the study began. The PEL stands for Planning and Environment Linkages. So it's intended to link all of the planning studies that have been done, land use planning, municipal, regional transportation plans, conservation plans, land and water use plans. All the planning that's been done and take into account when it goes into a project-based, this is not a project yet, this is a study, when it goes into a project-based study, to take all of those planning issues and bring them forward into the National Environmental Policy Act, or the more detailed environmental process, once we start a design process. So this is based on the federal highways PEL process, and they have found, we've got a slide in the back, they have found that there's a lot of benefits to doing a PEL. That the PEL then will take all of these planning organizations and these planning products, and they'll integrate them with, before it goes into the more detailed environmental analysis. And what that does is it shortens the PEL or the NEPA process. NEPA is like an environmental assessment, environmental impact statement, those kinds of processes. It shortens that process, and then a project is not built in a vacuum. No longer will that process be built in a vacuum, and so we don't preclude all of the plans and maybe build a project that all of these other plans now can't be implemented because this project was built without that information. So you'll see that there's many steps. We've identified the transportation issues in that needs and deficiency and prioritize what those issues are. And really here is where we want your input. We're highlighting environmental and community concerns in order to create a roadmap to a project. And we hope that from this whole process, these early action projects, these quick wins, these breakout projects can be implemented. But the beauty is that we've worked during the time that we've been doing this study. We've got a project advisory committee, the PAC committee. The PAC committee serves as a bridge between the team and the community, in that the PAC committee represents municipalities, business interests, planning organizations, all of those types of people. We also want community engagement. It's very critical at the PEL level, and once we go into NEPA with a project, it's also very, very critical there. You guys are the ones who drive, whoops. Let me go back, there we go. You guys are the ones who know the corridor. I mean, talking to you guys live it daily. You know the problems. You guys have probably thought of concepts to solve some of those problems. So this is where we are. We've begun our studies. We've looked at our needs and deficiencies. We've initiated this study. We've integrated all these community land use transportation resource plans, and now we are evaluating these solution-based concepts. Now, if you notice, our study limits from the New York border up here to past exit 7 into 8, we know that this whole corridor is a very, very complex corridor. It has complex issues. It has issues that are specific to localized areas. So we did not want to look at the whole thing as only one potential solution. We looked at the main line. This is why we broke it into segments. We looked, you know that over here in the west, where 7 comes in, there are very, very, very specific left-hand ramps, very specific issues. In the center, access to and from I-84 from these local roads, access to downtown Danbury, access to the hospital. We've got places where we don't have complete interchanges. You can only get on one direction, right? So those are complex issues. And then we had another set of issues over here. What do you call it, Sharath? The turtleback?
Humpback.
The humpback or the turtleback? As well as again, the left-hand ramps where 7 comes in and out. So we then, because of that analysis, we broke it into a mainline segment. And the mainline segment has some very key deficiencies. as we know, we've got peak hour congestion. We've got our left-hand entrance and exits. We've got a lot of very short throat acceleration and deceleration lanes. We've got curves that change our drive speed because the curves have a lower design speed than do the straightaways. So we don't have a consistency of traffic flow. We have poor sight distance at both hills and around curves that'll slow the traffic, and this lack of lane continuity through the entire corridor. So we're going to ask Sharat to explain some of the concepts that have been put forward to solve some of those key deficiencies.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
So if you went through the boards, there are three mainline concepts that we're looking at. Concept one, which is the first one, which is looking at the lane ad. And what basically it does is provides an additional lane for the entire stretch of the New York line on 84 to exit 8. So wherever you see lanes adding, dropping, that no longer would be the part of this concept, you would have 3 lanes that you would continuously have all the way to go towards Hartford or all the way to go to New York. So some places you see exit only coming up, some places near exit 4, you see like a lane drop happening when the 7 on comes on. So that's one thing part of the lane ad. The other thing is the 2 7 interchanges. Those left-hand entrances and exits would be switched over to the right-hand side. So everyone who's wanting to go to Route 7 now would have to exit on the right side, not on the left side. So that eliminates a lot of what we call as a weaving issue, where traffic is trying to kind of cross and conflicting. So that's part of the concept 1. The next one that was looked was concept 9. I'm not sure how many of you went to the website, but this is a concept similar to concept 1, except that this concept looks at providing an express access from 7 to 7. So we would put 7 in the median. There would be a flyover on 7 that would basically give you an option of either staying on the right to exit to Lake Avenue or going to the downtown exits. If you miss that exit, you're all the way for a ride to exit 7. So basically, it would be an express facility all the way to going towards New Milford and Brookfield. There's no way you can get to a local exit then. So this is a concept for concept 9. Similar to that, a concept 22 was the idea of providing 84 as an express. So it kind of switches here where we would still do the left-hand to right-hand ramps. The 84 would now be in the median as an express. So if you are going on 84 towards Hartford or 84 towards New York, you have the option of getting into that median section where you get a straight shot all the way through the corridor. You don't have to take any exits. Or you can stay on the right and take those local exits on 84 along with 7 to exit 5 and 6. So the downside between 9 and 22 are they get to be much wider. So they create more impacts. The footprint gets much wider compared to concept 1, which is only a lane ad, which is much more narrower in terms of the width of the road. So those are the 3 that are in play as part of the mainline concepts.
Thanks. So you can already get the idea of what we're doing. Now we'll look at the same kind of process for our west segment. So some of the key deficiencies, again, those left-hand exits, the big weave that Sharat was talking about. If you have to move over 3 or 4 lanes to maintain your direction of flow, and somebody else is moving over 3 or 4 lanes to the other direction, that's what we refer to as a weave. And then again, throughout this area, we've got these sharp curves and the short merging distances.
Okay, so 2 concepts in the west. They call concept 6 and 12. I'm trying to keep you up with the numbering. But concept 6 is what we're calling the Cedar Street ramp. So that was looked at initially was because 84 traffic wants to get to Lake Avenue. And you've probably seen this happen a lot where traffic just stops right at this ramp, especially because 7 traffic is coming on. They're trying to merge, 84's traffic is trying to cut across to Lake Avenue. There's a mess here, and it's all backed up all the way down to the New York line. So this idea was to provide a ramp down to Seeger, which allows an 84 traffic to exit on Seeger Street. And there would be a barrier that would be provided for this piece where 84 traffic no longer can take Lake Avenue. So the only people who can take Lake Avenue is the 7 traffic that tries to come on and and takes the Lake Avenue. So we kind of split the Lake Avenue traffic between 84 and Seeger Street, between Lake Avenue and Seeger Street. One of the other things we do here is we kind of put a little bit of a curve on 7 to slow down 7 as it comes in. If you travel 7 comes in pretty high speed onto 84 today because it's got a straight shot, and you can kind of see from this line here, this white line represents the existing 7. So by doing this, we are allowing this merge to be much easier than what it is today, and allowing that 7 traffic to better mix with the ramp traffic. The other concept that you looked at was concept 12. We don't do the Seeger Street anymore, but what we do is anyone who wants to get to Lake Avenue, we put them on this green road called the CD road. You probably got fed up of listening to CD road a few times on these concepts, but it's essentially a roadway that parallels a highway that's an express facility. We put them on that road, and that's where 7 traffic would come in. So that would create some conflicts here, especially with 7 traffic and that Lake Avenue traffic. But 84 now doesn't have any issues because 84 traffic that's going to Lake Avenue would be on this green road. They won't be on trying to cut across to Lake Avenue. So those are the 2 that are in play. And mainly they were looked at on the west side to address the issue between 3 and 4. Now, keep in mind, as part of concept 1 and 9 and 22, the left-hand to right-hand ramps are part of that larger project. So in these smaller interchange area concepts, we're not looking at switching ramps. They're already part of the larger lane add option.
Thanks. So to kind of clarify, because you'll hear the word CD again, it stands for collector distributor. So you have mainline traffic on a flow through, and you have an adjacent highway, if you will, that takes all of the on-ramps and all of the off-ramps, so you can collects all the traffic and distributes all the traffic, and then it'll eventually join back in. But it's to take all of those on and off-ramps off from the main line. So then we also have the center segment, and the main deficiencies were really more, there is some with this increased congestion. There's still congestion throughout the center section, but a lot of it was poor mobility, poor access to local roadways, poor access to downtown and some of the destination locations like Danbury Hospital.
So Center had 4 segments. I don't know if you've four concepts. I'm not sure if you've seen all of them. So there's several concepts that were not moved forward, and there's a board here that shows which ones will move forward. But this one is called the Hospital Access Tamarack Avenue. So when we started the study, there were a few concerns by stakeholders by looking at the needs and deficiencies. As Rick said, poor connection to downtown, poor connection to the hospital. So a lot of these concepts, when they came in play, were looking at addressing hospital access, downtown access. And many of you know that 6 today is what's called a partial, that you can only exit or enter from the east. You cannot get to North Street to and from the west. So the whole idea was to create a new interchange here in this concept at Tamarack Avenue, which will be a full interchange. The issue is obviously North Street. These ramps would have to be removed, so these existing ramps would come out. Anyone who wants to use North Street would have to use Haystown or other ways to get to North Street. So that's kind of a downside, but certainly provides a direct connection to the hospital camera. Concept 13 was looked at as something that could be done probably much sooner and easier, is to leave the existing ramps on North Street, but provide a new ramp going to and from the west at Great Plain. So this would provide that connection to the hospital through Great Plain, because Great Plain kind of turns into Locust, which goes into the hospital. So certainly that is something that was also looked at to keep the existing exit 6 ramp, provide new ramps at Great Plain. The only downside is you split the 2 entrances. You basically have one side on North Street, the other side on Great Plain. A lot of drivers don't recognize that until they create that confusion. Concept 16, which is certainly probably the more impactful of the 4, was to look at providing that ramp from North Street somehow. So here in the green is again going back to that CD road, which is a road that would be, in this case, a very short spur on both north and the south side, connecting North and Tamarack. The idea would be to pull traffic from both roads, put them on the CD road, which would then feed to the ramps going in each direction. And obviously to the south side creates a lot more impacts That's Worcester Cemetery here. This is kind of their property, so kind of this road would tie in there. Has some more impacts with this being ramps, quite short ramps because they're very close to the highway. So certainly this had a little bit more impacts. And then the 26 was the last of the concepts that you number from the numbering sequence. And this came about more discussions with the city to provide a full connection on North Street, to full access to North Street. So in the westbound direction, as you're going westbound, this ramp would be the new ramp that would be added to get onto 84 to allow that traffic from North Street to be able to access it. Eastbound, we could not put in the on-ramp from Main Street and the off-ramp to North Street close to each other. That's why we created to this green road, which is called the CD road. So you still will be able to use the CD road and be able to get to North Street, but it won't be a direct connection from 84. So now this way we are now providing a full connection at North Street, which is kind of a lot more favorable to businesses, a lot more favorable to direct access. People use North Street quite a bit. And all the only concern being the interchange gets very close to Main and North get very close to each other. And this is the reason why for so many years you never saw an on and off at North Street is because of the proximity. Again, this is one of the things we are evaluating as part of all the four and looking at all those four and seeing how they work against each other.
Thanks. So now we're going to be looking at the east segment, and we can see that there was, again, it's mainly these weaves between the two exits and the left-hand exits. And so as we are looking here at potential concepts to solve some of those problems.
Okay. Two concepts on the east, number 14 and 15 happen to be back to back. And here what we're trying to do is a couple of things. One is, we already know this, we've switched the ramps in the main line concept on the right side. Here what we're doing is as you're going eastbound on 84, today you make an exit to your left to go 7 north. This way we put the exit on the right. You take this CD road, there would be a slip ramp to go to 7 north here. You can stay on this green road and get off at Newtown Road. So you never have to get back to 84 to get to Newtown Road. Once you make that exit, you're going to Newtown Road. You also have the option to go back on 84 if you need. There's a small slip ramp here. The other problem today is the 7 south traffic that wants to get to Newtown Road. Because Federal Road, as most of you know, Federal Road too dangerous. So what we did is we pulled that ramp here on the right side, put them on the green road, and then they would just be able to get to Newtown Road, or if they want to get to 7 from 84, they could use the slip ramp to get back on in the eastbound. Under this concept, 14, we don't have the westbound CD road. So in this concept, all we would do is what you have today, is to bring them on 84 and merge them. So this is what you're calling the turtleback or the humpback or whatever terminology you want to use. These are a pair of two one-way roads that people circle around quite a bit. So the biggest improvement, we have a concept here that we might be able to take a lot of that traffic that's circulating in this area out. Today, it's a one-way pair, so if you are going north on Newtown Road, you have to loop around all the way, go through all these lights if you want to get back to 84. What we're doing here is proposing a new style of interchange called diverging diamond interchange. What that does is, Newtown Road traffic would be switched over on the left side. So you'll be now not the normal side you drive, you'll be on the wrong side. You'll be switched on the left side, there'll be a traffic light that will make you do that. And with that, you'll be able to get on the ramp without a traffic signal. That ramp would be a direct connection to the ramp from Newtown Road. It takes away a lot of traffic that circulates around and essentially comes around. So that would basically put you on this ramp, and then you can go 7 north, 84 west. We are also making other recommendations, which you have to study further in terms of trying to move this on-ramp east of Payne Road so people can access this ramp if they're coming from Payne Road. There's a lot of traffic from Bethel that gets on Payne Road and wants to get to 84 East. They kind of do all the way around. So by relocating this ramp to the east, we would be able to have them jump on here. We also are providing for if you're coming from the Target and want to get to 84 East, instead of doing all this, we're providing a slip ramp from here. So if you come out of Target, you can get on 84 East right off there. So some small improvements that would just allow this take away all the circulation of traffic that goes on here. The only difference between 14 and 15 is in the westbound direction now we provide the green road or the CD road. The downside of this one is if you're going 7 north, you would have to get off this ramp here and take this blue road, which is essentially the circulator road, and get on this ramp. There's no ramp as part of this concept to slip it on from 84 here. So unfortunately, they would have to go through a few lights, and that could be a lot of traffic trying to go through a bunch of lights to get to 7 north. If you want to get to 84, you can stay on the CD road, and that CD road would tie back on to 84 here. So the benefit of 15 is what you don't see in 14 is this so-called what you call crisscrossing of traffic that happens a lot in 14. We would get rid of that in 15 because 84 here in the westbound as well doesn't have that anymore because all of that crisscrossing is going on that CD road.
So we want Sharat to continue on here, but I'd like to take a pause for a second and remind us that we're at this conceptual Pell study level with these concepts that have been brought forward and vetted and designed to a degree that we can see if they function or not. And then we're trying to figure out which of these concepts by segment have a better use, a better solves the congestion and mobility problems better, or has less of an impact to the built or natural communities, right? So that's kind of where we're going. But these are just the potential highway options that we've presented so far. Sharat, I'm going to ask you to continue on with your dynamic lane use and some of those.
Sure.
But I want everybody to realize where we are in the study and keep that in our minds.
So some of these that you're seeing here are kind of more long-term. They're kind of larger projects. Of course, require a lot more design and planning work. So what we started to look at some of the things that could be implemented much on a shorter term. So what this is called what's called dynamic lane use. And some of you I know visited this board here. So the idea here, I kind of go back to I use the Tappan Zee example because most of you probably driven the Tappan Zee. It's not exactly like Tappan Zee, but the concept is similar to it. They kind of use this in the Midwest quite a bit. So the idea here is to maximize the existing roadway that's available, maximize the width of the roadway in each direction that's available for travel. How can we fit an additional lane without having to widen? And we may have to widen, but we're still investigating it. The idea is to get a 4th lane in the left side. So the left shoulder today is about 10 feet wide. We certainly couldn't get a full lane in there because we got to keep a certain amount of shoulder in there. We would try to work with the existing lanes, try to get at least a 2-foot shoulder and put a lane in there. And the issue, and we get this question all the time is, oh, you're already adding a 4th lane, why don't you keep it 24/7? The problem is we have a 2-foot shoulder. It's not great, especially during times when you have an accident or any kind of issue, or even maintenance is a big concern. I know we talked to the gentleman in the back and snow removal, taking debris out, things like that. Certainly that lane would be only used in times when it's in need. So in this case, in the morning, for example, we would be using the lane in the direction that it's needed, which is going into New York. In the evening, we would be using it in the eastbound direction that is coming in towards Hartford. In the middle of the day, that lane would be shut because we really don't need it. Some people said in the weekends, we need shopping and we need to get traffic. Certainly that's something that could be adjusted. So if the lane needs to be open, there are cameras that will be installed that would indicate whether there's a lot of traffic, you need to turn the lane on. There'll be like gantries that would indicate that lane can be used. We are certainly studying this an idea to see how we can maximize the available roadway to push as much traffic as we can through the corridor. Something that we are looking at more. There's a lot more studying that needs to be done. There's a lot of structures here. You got to look at it, look at the engineering piece of it. One of the big issues is drainage. Certainly we don't want to pond that lane, especially when there's a big storm. So those are kinds of technical issues that need to be worked out. But this is one of the ones that's in play. Probably 5 to 10 year time frame. We don't know, but certainly something that could be implemented on a much quicker timeline. We also have looked at several other, as part of the Pell, we are asked to look at everything, not only just highway improvements and looking at these early projects, but looking at how we can improve existing transit services, like existing rail service. How can we improve can we provide bicycle lanes or bicycle facilities? So one of the things we looked at is we did a very high-level transit analysis, and we noticed that a lot of the people within the Danbury area that use 84 are living within this orange belt. As far as Southbury to the east, as far as New Milford to the north, and mainly the New Milford folks are either going to New York, Brewster, or Norwalk. Southbury folks are going to Brewster. In fact, there's a lot of people who live in Southbury, take a bus sometimes to go to Brewster, get on the Harlem line, and get to New York. They don't want to go to Norwalk, they go to Brewster. So establishing these regional connections certainly would give us an additional mobility option, would not take a bunch of people off the highway, but certainly gives them an option, gives us an opportunity for them to use the bus, which would be an express bus that would get them to Brewster, or if they want to connect to Norwalk. So there are some of these opportunities that need to be studied further, but these are opportunities that we would be documenting as part of the PEL process to say that there are some options available on the regional basis. In addition to that, we also feel there needs to be some potential changes maybe made to the local service. So there's a lot of buses now that HART operates that do a great job of trying to connect as much as possible between different services. Most of these buses come to one location today. They come to downtown near Kennedy Park, and you kind of have to switch over. There's a pulse point there. They're trying to move that pulse point to the rail station. But this circulator service would provide that opportunity for them to not use a connection that they have to switch over, they would have to transfer. This would allow them to kind of go from east to west. So if you're living in the Brookfield, like in the Federal Road area, I want to get to the mall, you could use this service. You don't have to transfer, you don't have to wait for the next bus. You can also stop at one of the pulse points and then switch over to another bus. Again, a little bit more service planning needs to be done, but again, it's an idea that how people could transfer between local service, or even transfer between this and the express that I showed in the previous slide. So certainly this is something that would have to be worked in more detail in terms of exact timings and frequencies of the buses. In addition to the bus, most of you probably heard about the Danbury line, Danbury to Brewster line, which is the existing rail bed that the Housatonic Railroad owns. There was a study done by Putnam County to look at that potential connection to provide some kind of a 10 to 12 minute service from Danbury to the Brewster to connect, because this is mainly to have a lot of folks who take their car, single occupant cars, to drive over to Harlem line, park the cars in the Harlem line stations, and there's not enough parking, and try to get to the Harlem line to get to New York City. So the idea here is to look at this rail connection to see if there's a way to, without having them to switch trains in Brewster, to kind of have this train kind of make a U-turn and go all the way down to New York City as a potential option. So this is something that's being studied already as part of that other project. So we wanted to recognize that that is something that is in play that's being looked at by both Danbury and Putnam County.
What's the status of that?
They did a feasibility study. They came up with some track alignments. One of the things they found is the tracks have to be upgraded because they were running freight on it. The whole ballast and the tracks and everything needs to be upgraded. So study has been completed. It's called a feasibility study. They already figured out the alignment of this. I think the next step is to kind of do more coordination with Housatonic. The big issue is coordinating with the Housatonic Railroad, who owns the line. So certainly to see how it would work, if they will ever use it in the future, because that's going to be a concern with how running passenger service, and if Housatonic needs to use it. So I think the city is more up to speed with it. The study was published in March of this year. It was just completed. There was a presentation on that. So I think there's obviously work to be done on that, but there's certainly something that they recommend in terms of what's called ridership, in terms of how many people would use that line. They seem to be quite a lot of benefit of taking those single occupant vehicles out according to their analysis. And I think they're introducing two additional stations between Danbury and Brewster on the Danbury side, on the Connecticut side. So there'll be two stops before they get to. Yeah, I think there's one on near, is it River? I forget the name of the street. River, exit 1, Ripple 1. There's a condo complex here, exit 1. There's one stop there, and there's one near the where Union Carbide used to be. So I think there are two stops there. Rivington, you got it, Rivington. So I think there are two stops there going over to that. And then in addition to the transit, we also looked at, again, this is hard to see, but we went from the New York line all the way to exit 8 and started to explore opportunities where bicycles could be accommodated. I mean, certainly right now, if you look at any of the streets in Danbury, it's probably very low use of bicyclists. A lot of it is because of the grade, the terrain. A lot of it is because of traffic volume, especially when you get into the downtown area with Main Street and North Street. It's very hard to ride your bike with volumes that are going north-south on Main Street and North Street. But there are some ideas we have in terms of how bicycle facilities could be accommodated. We don't see all of these coming up right at the same time, but these are, again, ideas which could be more improvised, and maybe a small spur starts and then the next one starts. The city is also looking at potential trail connections, which are not on-road. These would be off-road, and they could be implemented probably much quicker because they're more offline work involved. So the trail connections would tie in well. They could be tied in with any kind of on-road bicycle facility. So this is something that we've given the city for review, and we will be incorporating some of these ideas into the Pell report as part of our study. In addition to some of the projects like the lane use that I talked about, the department is currently looking at installing cameras along 84, like you probably see on 95. There are going to be cameras that you can kind of log on to the DOT website and see conditions of traffic and things like that. They're also going to be installing what's called variable message signs. The VMS signs, the large signs would tell you Hartford 30 miles, 20 minutes, or 25 minutes, or something like that, which gives more driver information. That's part of a program that the department is already moving forward with. We're also working with the city on looking at some of the traffic lights to see if the traffic lights could be better timed. Some of these places where the traffic backs up quite a bit. Looking at, the city has a plan to look at something on Main Street and Down Street in terms of looking at potentially converting downs to one-way. So there's some ideas that on the local level that we're working with the city. We talked about that exit 8 area with the diverging diamond, the ramp on the left side. And we are also working on what's called travel demand management. This is the whole project of incorporating, reducing the amount of single occupant vehicles on the highway. Trying to either provide better park and rides. The park and ride on exit 7 is very well used because people take that park and ride to park their car and go all the way to New York to grab the Harlem line because it's much further out. People rather take the park and ride. As you get closer to the New York line, the park and ride use gets less because you're closer to the border. You actually decide to take your car. But those are opportunities. We talked to cars early on to even look at some employer-based travel demand management where they could encourage shuttles between the train stations and the facility so people are not driving to their facility and using all their parking. So it reduces the amount of parking you would need if you have some kind of shuttle service from the train station. So we have a report that we did to look at all these opportunities. We will be incorporating that. Again, these are small things that provide some benefit and do not take a lane of highway away, but basically provide these opportunities that people can use, what we call them as a mobility opportunity. So certainly that's something we will document as part of the process. With that, I'll give it to Neil.
All right. Probably the question that everybody's wondering is, all right, what's next? When is this going to end? So as Rick and Sharad explained, right, there's a lot of concepts. You've seen all the concepts. And so the next part of this study is to, continue to analyze those concepts, screen them, eventually putting them together as alternatives and going through that screening process. We're going to continue to work with the PAC on that as we go through that process. But we're looking for, trying to complete that analysis in early 2023. We do want to come back out to the public in probably the spring or summer of 23 to kind of present those results. And what you're going to see is a plan moving forward, right? That's what's coming out of the study. That's going to be a recommendation of projects. Now, as we talked about those early actions, break out those quick wins, we definitely want to focus on those and see if we can get them into construction as soon as possible. Of course, we still have to go through that environmental design on some of those, but I would say, the dynamic lane use, I know you said 5 to 10. I'm going to put a little pressure. I think we want to get that one in. If it moves forward, I think we want to get that one in construction, like, maybe 4 or 5 years. Take advantage of some of the infrastructure funding, the infrastructure bill funding. So that's what's going to come out of the study is that plan. For the long-term solution, that has to go into a detailed environmental analysis. There's that range of alternatives that has to go through that NEPA process, which is that environmental analysis, and then design, and then construction. So, you know, this is just a better overview of the time frame right now. Again, this is what we're looking at it's a snapshot in time right now. Things can change, obviously, but again, if you look at towards the right side here, as we finish up the study in 23, this kind of talks about some of those less complex projects that we can try to get into construction sooner, so maybe within that 2, 3, 4, 5-year time frame. Again, the long-term, more complex, obviously, project, got a range of alternatives into the environmental study. And, you know, as we go through that and there's a preferred alternative, a solution, depending on what that is, and we all know, as you can see here, the length of the corridor, the magnitude of the project, is not something that can be done with one project. So it's probably going to get phased. This is just an example. We're not saying there's going to be 3 phases, but think of I-84 in Cheshire, Southington, Waterbury, that corridor, how it was built over time. That's similar to what would happen here, given the magnitude and just the sheer cost of the project. So this kind of gives a good framework of the timeline, and as you look to the right, public involvement, that's going to continue throughout. So throughout, you know, at the end of the study phase, into the environmental study, into design, and even into construction. So, talking about public outreach, how can you stay involved? We've got our website at I-84danbury.com. Follow us, like a lot of you already are, on social media. We'll be trying to get back to some events, probably in 23 after, you know, maybe it warms up a little bit more. But we'll be out, we have been in the past, a lot of pop-up events, community events. And we also have our email here that is available on our website also. So, with that, keep it on this one. We can open it up to any questions. Got the whole team here. I know we've answered a lot of
You
questions.
talked about environmental studies and everything like that. Where does all the runoff go off on these highways?
Yeah, that's, I mean, again, that's gonna be part, as we get further in design, stormwater quality and all that, that
So
has to be addressed, but that's really when we get into.
all our local facilities, like I belong to the Elks Club on Route 7. We had to put a separate drain on the in my parking lot, filter it into a filtration system, and then it piped out to the water. Route 7 had just put their new highway, the new double wide highway, and every drain goes right into the water without any filtration system. Why does the state set an example of trying to prevent?
Yeah, I understand. We have to adhere to that.
And
We have
also,
strict
you see-
stormwater quality guidelines.
You see all the DOT guys, sorry, dump all the asphalt in the middle of the road, in the middle of the intersection where you're talking about Super 8 and 3 and 4, dead carcasses, but I understand you could get rid of it that way, but that's all environmental stuff. And it seems like the state gets away with all that stuff.
Actually, it's also almost the opposite on some of our projects that we have around the state in terms of stormwater quality. I could tell you that
But the local people are doing the best they can to solve the problems, you know, environmental. The state is just doing the opposite.
What we see.
Yeah.
What we see.
Yeah, yeah, and I can honestly tell you from other cases, other projects that we have, and from what we're hearing, even with some newer EPA regulations that we're hearing about, there really is gonna be a much more stringent look, especially on the state
And
agencies.
so things like development, like housing developments are coming in, and they have to put a certain catch for water and build a dam to catch that water for silt and everything like that. On the highways, we don't see that.
So one of the opportunities for this project is that, so the highway was built in the 1950s and there was no regulations and there was really probably no permitting that went into put the highway in. So one of the opportunities for this as we go through and start constructing projects, first of all, these guys have to get the same permits from the Department of Environmental Protection that all other projects do. And so now we have stormwater criteria and requirements that are put into place that will actually, even though In the mainline, ad alternative, you've got more pavement happening. You also have the opportunity to treat it, to filter it, to make sure that before it goes off the highway, it's getting the proper treatment so that it's entering the local streams in a manner that's of better quality than we have today with a smaller footprint. So more quantity, better quality so that's one of the side opportunities of this. Yeah, because we've got a lot of streams. We've got the big ones, Still River, but we've got a lot of small streams and the wetlands that are associated with them. And so this project, in any phase of it, would need to go to the Army Corps of Engineers, to the Connecticut DEP for any wetland impact, including streams and any water quality input to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more of that detail as we get into design.
Sure.
So as far as your process and where you are you still taking comments?
Yes,
You are, okay.
yeah, throughout the process.
And where should those be directed?
That email,
info@I-84danbury.com.
Okay, alright.
In fact, there's
It's on our
a, I think there's a card, right, that you guys can pick up a card that has all this information.
Okay.
I can go grab them and print them out too.
Yeah, well, the concepts, as you know, are up on the website.
It looks like you guys are in the right direction, but we need to do something.
Yeah,
It needs to be done soon.
right. And again, I think we kind of, even our management is saying, really pursue some of the early actions if we can. If they're independent users, if they don't affect anything else, if we can get them implemented, let's try to get those in and get some benefits early on.
Yep.
And that includes everything, right? That's sure that's it. It's not just the highway, we're gonna look at some of the local intersections, based on what the city has told us, but it's also the non-highway stuff, the bike bed initiatives, that's a big push,
Mhm.
throughout the state, and, we do have some opportunities, I think. Especially, I think, on the western side, maybe a little bit more.
On the Milkmaid side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
On one of your presentations, you were mentioning something about in the median doing either 84 or
Yeah,
7?
yeah.
That could be done in the existing footprint, or do you have to take
No.
over land?
Yeah.
That's why those two are not as favorable as
Yeah,
the first one.
You have
Because
to
you're gonna
take
now
over
widen the
additional
footprint. You're
land.
gonna push everything out, because
Mm.
that express facility also has barriers in between to prevent people to go from the express to the local.
Ah.
So now you're adding more footprint to it.
And so you know how tightly everything's built, so that's gonna be a lot more impactful.
Right.
The best one is still. Get that lane in your.
Oh, you like the dynamic lane use?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that we're, again, I think, Michigan's doing, New Jersey has one, a lot of other states have them. We've got more data now, because some of them are, I think, 6 years now they're
Yeah.
using them.
And
So
they've
they're
been
starting
using that
to,
as a permanent.
they're starting to give us some data too, so that, because a lot of questions come up in terms of safety and effective, so.
Yeah.
The more, data that we have, we can support it. And the fact that, you talked about the incident management, so if you have cameras and the signs, that definitely helps the dynamic lane use. If a vehicle is broken down there, we can shut that lane down, so.
Mhm.
Did any of these concepts, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
No, go ahead.
did any of these concepts address the eastbound exit 5 at all going down the street, going over to Clapboard Ridge Road? I don't know if I saw any of these.
Not direct, I mean, the concept 26, which the city recommended, had, I can put the.
Are you talking eastbound, exit 5?
Exit 5 eastbound,
Going down to Downs.
Yeah.
down street to the traffic light, to Main Street, making a left to go up Clapboard Ridge Road.
Yeah, so this is the only one that looks a little bit more. Like
So there's
the city.
no exit 5 with a
Correct.
ramp going across the highway right there, Clapboard Ridge, without avoiding going down to Main Street.
Yeah, so you still would have the westbound access though.
He's talking about eastbound,
You're talking about eastbound?
Eastbound.
Eastbound.
Yeah.
Because all the
So
traffic
that would
going,
eliminate it right there.
like, all the traffic going to North Street gets off at 5, all the traffic going up Clapboard Ridge Road gets off at 5.
Right,
And they have to go down to Main Street, make a left, to go underneath the highway to make,
that would be the same case in all of them.
okay,
There's no
no
change.
flyovers or anything.
No, I mean, the problem is we can't grade separated here, because the elevations don't work well to allow that to happen. I mean, he's talking about like getting to Clapbridge, you have to make a left, whether you make it here or whether you make it there.
A lot of people get off exit 5 there, and a lot of people from the Fairfield make that left out to North Main Street, go up Clapper Ridge, or they go up,
Golden Hill.
Golden Hill.
Golden Hill.
Yeah.
And it goes over to
39.
39,
That's because you don't have a ramp here now. You don't have the
Right.
eastbound ramp here.
right?
They use this and they kind of go up this way.
Yeah.
If you add this North Street connection, a lot of those people who go through Golden Hill
And then
now
off
have
right
to
there too. Is
go
that off
over
right there?
this and go
Yeah.
up north, so.
That was a concern though, so the city
Yeah.
voiced in terms of
And you were
Golden
talking
Hill.
about Down Street, possibly making it a one-way going down only?
Yeah, so there's some ideas the city had in terms of making this piece of Downs one way, because the other direction doesn't have a lot of traffic. Because there's
Going up the
not
hill around the circle?
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
basically, if you have this ramp, you would just make this one way all the way up to Main.
Most people would hate that, you know, one-way
Uh,
traffic. 3 lanes?
There's not a
You
lot.
still get up there.
You could still, there's other streets here, you could get up here. There's not an issue that way. But it takes away a lot of pressure on this traffic light, which is, we also got consensus
You
with the
get
city
2
about.
lanes turn left and 2 lanes.
That's one of the intersections that we're gonna look at,
Yeah.
maybe even as a breakout, try and improve that, so you get some temporary benefit, at least in this area.
They also talked about the sight line as you come down Main Street, you can't see to
Yeah.
the cemetery, because there's a wall.
Around that
somewhere.
corner,
yeah.
So that's something that we're gonna look at, there's a way to,
You don't know if it's
Quick
cars
fix the
stopping
alignment
that traffic light.
Yeah, I know.
You had a question?
get a question.
Yeah, Supervisor, so if you do the short-term dynamic lane proposal, wouldn't that exacerbate the problems of this crossover traffic even more? I mean, now you have 4 lanes, but you still have all of these crisscross traffics at exit 4, and I mean, again,
Yeah, the signage would have to
so,
really be clear in terms
Right.
of, because, and how do you drop that lane, that's something we're looking at, right? Because again, as you exit for Route 7, you know, you really want it to just filter into that, but then again, you're gonna have vehicles that are starting out on the right, trying to get over into that left lane. But at this, you know, you would have a 4th lane, so. it
right, I'm
may-
just saying, some people might now, instead of crossing 2 lanes, they would be crossing 3 lanes.
Probably.
And it would,
Until they
The
do that.
signage would
make
have to be
things
playing in, yeah,
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
signage.
certainly a concern.
and I'm just wondering how much actual, like, data-driven is this? Like, how many studies have gone into it to see, like, where is the actual traffic, like, from Route 7, where do they wind up? Are they getting off exit 5, are they getting off exit 7? You know, are you actually tracking where the cars are going?
Yeah, so we did a extensive data collection program back in 16, so before COVID.
Mhm.
So we collected traffic volumes all through the corridor. We also looked at what's called origin destination, where people on 84 are coming from. We found that a third of the traffic on 84 is local traffic. There are people who live in Danbury and just using 84 to get around the town. We found 7 to 7 traffic is about a third, and the 84 to 84 traffic is about 40% roughly. So there's an equal balance of those movements that are happening between 84 to local, 7 to 7. So certainly, you know, that was part of a lot of decisions that you've been looking at in terms of the whole collector distributed road idea, was essentially to pull some of that local traffic onto that collector distributed road. So we don't have to put the traffic on the main line, then they should be on that collector distributed road trying to get to local road. So a lot of this analysis was based upon that data and trying to understand patterns of people, how they travel.
But even adding a CD road is not gonna take over additional land, you're gonna do it within the confines of where it is right now?
No,
No, we would, basically, this CD road, for example, would be, we haven't really figured out how this would be in terms of elevation, but it's going to be pretty close butting against. We have retaining walls, which basically would not, you know, create property impact. So certainly we know this is a built-up neighborhood. Concerns about that, so we have to, again, this is one of the concepts, so we have 3 other concepts here that are being looked at. So everything is going to be looked against each other to see how this fares against the other concepts.
Yeah, that's part of our evaluation, is if we have 4 concepts and they essentially all perform similarly in terms of traffic, then we start looking at how many impacts does one have versus the other. And if you know, just throwing out hypothetical numbers, if you took portions or all of, 25 properties in one case, and you have another alternative that works just as well and it only impacts 2 or 3 properties, then that's one of the considerations that we will be looking at.
So we'll be looking at, when we go into more and get more detailed design, we'll be looking at specific impacts at that point, both to the built and the natural environment.
Yeah, still disappointed that concept 10 wasn't part of the presentation. But for exit 3, exit 4 area, one thought, I remember way back when there used to be an actual exit onto Kenosha Avenue, was exit 2 back then.
Correct, yeah.
Was that considered to perhaps bring that back to help relieve some of the volume maybe going to either the mall area or to that part of Mill Plain Road?
So, keeping the existing
You're
exit.
pointing out 30 where it is, exactly where it was.
Yeah, to the
Yeah,
west.
it was, you have to
It's
show
out of the
Kenosha
map
Avenue.
anyway.
Middle
It
button.
wouldn't be on there yet.
Where you go?
Maybe concept 1.
Go, your left button will go back one.
Yeah, use the right one.
Right one?
There you go. And then the center's the,
Oh.
or you can turn it off. And thank you very much, good night.
Right, here was the exit.
Yeah, it would be further down, because it'd be in the intersection of Kenosha.
It's
Well,
further
here's the
out,
railroad
right,
track.
further to the
Yeah,
west.
further west, yes.
Here's the railroad tracks,
Mhm.
and it came right up here, and
It's all
again, it
wetlands.
went over to the mall right here, this is the mall.
So like
This
a
is
back
the mall.
entrance.
It would be further west,
This is the, yeah, so you, right here.
I think Kenosha is further to the west, right?
It is, yeah.
The issue with that I can see is exit 2, that's Ridgebury Road, is very close to that Kenosha exit.
What is, I'm sorry?
Exit 2, Old Ridgebury Road exit,
Yes,
I think it's
they-
very
they
close.
added-
Not really, there used to be an existing one there. It was actually,
Yes.
way back when it was exit 2.
Yeah,
So you're talking
Yeah,
about-
that's a better map.
When Union Carbide came in, they
Mhm.
changed that all around,
Right,
and that's where they put that exit 2 in.
because
This is
it
Kenosha.
actually used to be an
Right.
exit that people used to go to the fair.
Yep, exactly.
So, I think if for whatever reason, I mean, actually, a lot of the infrastructure is still there, actually. You could resurrect that and maybe help,
Absolutely.
help you use that for some of the volume going to the mall area and also make a left onto that part of Mill Plain Road. Especially if you're considering that Cedar Street exit, right? Because that
So
Cedar
you
Street
think
exit
this
may
one would
help
have to
people
go
go
back?
into where 4 is, exit 4 is there. But there's a whole other part of Mill Plain Road that, it's pretty, which is getting congested enough as it is,
Absolutely.
which could probably use some help.
Yeah, we will have to look at this Kenosha, because we did not see any studies that were looking at this one per se, but, I mean, one of the concerns would be, this kind of splits this and this exit, kind of right in the middle of the two.
Yeah.
To kind of see how this works. But this would basically put more pressure on Kenosha and Bacchus and everything else as you go into the backside of the mall.
You see Johnson Trail Park right there.
Trailer
Two
park,
acres.
yeah.
And you're crossing a bunch of wetlands going into the mall area.
Yeah.
And there's a cemetery
You are
on
now,
this
yeah.
side of Kenosha, so.
But you can see the
So-
roads there, that those used to be part of the on and off ramp.
This used to be the off ramp right here, right here.
Right there.
No, it was Kenosha.
Kenosha is right here.
Kenosha's here.
Yeah, that was where it
So-
was.
Right here, came right off of here,
Area, yeah.
and it connected to here.
Because the people going to the wall.
So
they go
this-
to
So
the-
this came up here, the eastbound traffic came up here, right there. So when they built Union Carbide, which
Which
is
is
here,
this, they built this one.
they redid this whole part here.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are going all the way down to exit 4 to get off in here, and 3 to get to this side of town. That were going to Route 7. Used to come down here, and like you said, where the mall used to be was the Danbury Fair Mall, the Danbury Fair, which took all that traffic to the Danbury Fair.
So I guess my question is, if you're going right now, wouldn't you take the Route 7?
You know, people from New York State get off at exit 2 and come down Mill Plain Road, they go to Kenosha.
Yeah.
They go off, they get off exit 2, and they come down Mill Plain Road now.
They come
And
down,
they
don't
go,
play, they
and they
go
go across.
To Kenosha, and they make the right to go to the mall. They don't go to exit 3.
Yeah.
So they don't take this ramp and they
They would
get
take the ramp and go to Kenosha quicker.
the back up, because congestion.
Right.
Because everything's backed up.
Yeah.
And if traffic is,
It's horrendous.
that's
Don't
because the
play
traffic is
roads,
backed up. Yeah.
At
And
4
you know why?
o'clock, yeah.
Because we found that when we did the studies, this area between 3 and 4 is so bad that it gets so congested that it backs up all the way to 2 and 1 sometimes.
Mhm.
And people want to get off and they want to stay in traffic because of this backup from 4 and 3. So they go to Mill Plain. They go to Mill Plain.
So when you redo this,
When
no
you do-
traffic coming off at exit 2 from Mill Plain Road anymore. right?
Exactly. That's the idea. But
A lot of this.
I can't promise you, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
A lot of like the commuter traffic was, it seemed in my experience, I used to live in Southbury, so I was taking 84 East in the evenings all the time. And once you pass exit 5, it very quickly clears up. Like the section, because it's much wider, people have a chance to change before exit 7.
Right.
It's not really so much of an issue there, but there's a lot of traffic going to exit 5, probably because there's not an exit 6 ramp. And so that backs up to exit 4, and then you have the people crossing. So that's why that section between 3 and 5 is like the worst, but after you pass that, it's really.
You're absolutely right. And one of the issues is 7 traffic that wants to get to Route 7, exit 7, between 3 and 5, they're making their move to get to the left side. At the same time, right around this area, exit 5 traffic is getting off. So they're crisscrossing each other, 84 traffic trying to get to 5, 7 traffic trying to get to 7. Once you go past Down Street, I think this area gets relatively much easier because people know which lane they want to be on to get to 7. So thoroughly that is, so hopefully that's why we looked at that right-hand ramp at exit 7 is to keep those people on the right side so that crisscross doesn't happen at exit 5.
Okay. No more traffic, no traffic.
Only need to make a double lane on Mill Plain Road.
It's another state road.
On the state road, yeah. That's not their project.
Like I said, the city was saying that a lot of people use Golden Hill, coming down 37 to take Golden Hill to get on.
Correct.
4, and that's why the city really wants
Correct.
access at North Street.
Because we notice all the politicians hang up there because everybody's
It's
coming
really
to
a bad,
Fairfield.
narrow road and
Yeah.
steep
Wave your
grade.
signs, vote for me, right there. Yep. Yep, you're right.
So I think
Thank you.
we want to really thank you guys for coming out, and we're still here if you want specific one-on-one questions. But we really appreciate the time that you guys have
Thank you.
spent with us
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you. Good questions, too. Nothing to take into account. Hopefully we can get, larger participation next time,
In the spring.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.